The truth about toxic people. Your inner peace is in your hands. There is a deep and uncomfortable truth. If toxic people exist in your life, it is not entirely their fault. It is because you have allowed them space. But do not worry. Once you recognize this, you regain control. Toxic people do not simply appear. They find cracks in your boundaries, feeding off your reactions, thriving where your mindfulness is weak. Most people allow them to cause suffering because they fear confrontation or they hope that kindness alone will transform them. The Buddha taught that suffering is caused by attachment, by holding on to things that no longer serve us. You cannot fix a toxic person, but you can outgrow them. In this teaching, I will show you how to regain your peace and leave your negativity powerless. Lesson number 1. Forgive but do not forget. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood virtues. Many believe that forgiving someone is a sign of weakness, that it means excusing their behavior or welcoming them back into your life. But true forgiveness is not about the other person at all. It is about freeing yourself from the suffering of resentment. I learned this lesson in a painful way. I once had a friend, let's call them Alex. We were close. I trusted them deeply. One day, I confided in Alex, sharing something personal, believing my words were safe with them. But soon, I found out that they had twisted my words, shared my secret, and painted me in the worst possible light. The betrayal cut deep. For months, even years, I carried anger. Not just toward Alex, but toward myself for trusting them. Every time I thought about it, it was as if the wound reopened. Then one day, I read a simple but powerful teaching. Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. That realization hit me. While Alex had moved on, I was still trapped in suffering. My resentment was not hurting them. It was only harming me. So I made a choice. I forgave not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace. But here is the important part. I did not forget. Forgetting is not wisdom. Forgetting invites the same suffering back into your life. Forgiveness is healing the wound, but the scar remains as a lesson. The Buddha taught that wisdom arises from understanding our past, not erasing it. By forgiving, I reclaimed my inner peace. By remembering, I ensured I would never allow myself to be hurt in the same way again. Forgive to set yourself free. But never forget. Use the lesson to protect your heart. Lesson number 2. Limit their access to you. Some people do not deserve a front row seat in your life. It does not matter if they are family, lifelong friends, or colleagues. If they bring negativity, it is time to create distance. The Buddha taught about wise association, surrounding yourself with those who uplift your spirit, not those who drain it. Yet many of us fear setting boundaries, thinking it is unkind. But boundaries are not walls. They are gates, allowing in what nourishes you and keeping out what harms you. I used to be a people pleaser. If someone needed my time, energy, or attention, I gave it, no questions asked. I would spend hours listening to complaints, comforting those who never changed, and giving to people who would not lift a finger for me in return. Then one day, after yet another exhausting conversation with someone who only saw me as their emotional dumping ground, I asked myself, why am I allowing this? What am I getting from this? That was when I realized that not everyone deserves unlimited access to me. But here is where the wisdom of boundaries comes in. You do not always have to cut people off completely. Sometimes all you need to do is shift their access. If a friend only comes to you to complain, stop engaging. Instead of offering advice, respond with, "That sounds difficult. What do you think you will do? Watch how quickly they lose interest when you no longer feed their negativity. If a family member constantly criticizes your choices, stop sharing details about your life. Their disapproval has no power when they do not have information to judge. If a coworker thrives on gossip, simply respond, "Oh, I am not really interested in office drama," and walk away. When you limit access, you regain your energy. People may call you distant, but remember, it is better to be respected by a few than drained by many. Your peace is sacred, protect it. Those who truly value you will honor your boundaries. Lesson number 3. Use humor to disarm them. Toxic people thrive on conflict. They want a reaction. But when you refuse to engage in their negativity, they lose all power. One of the most effective ways to handle them is through humor. When you do not take them seriously, their attempts to provoke you fall flat. I remember a coworker who loved to criticize everyone. They found fault in everything, from work habits to clothing choices to the way people drank their coffee. One day, in front of a group, they sneered at me. "Wow, your desk looks like a tornado hit it. How do you even find anything in that mess?" Instead of getting defensive, I simply smiled and said, "You're absolutely right. This is my creative chaos. Einstein's desk was messier than mine, so I must be on track for genius." Everyone laughed. The attempt to humiliate me backfired, and that person never commented on my desk again. Why does humor work? It removes their power. Toxic people want control over your emotions. When you laugh instead of reacting, you show them they cannot affect you. Shifts the energy. Negativity feeds on tension. Humor brings lightness and unpredictability. Things toxic people cannot handle. Keeps you in control. By staying calm and witty, you show that you are unshakable. Lesson number 4. Observe, do not engage. The Buddha taught that we do not have to attend every battle we are invited to. The moment you engage with a toxic person, you give them control over your emotions. But when you step back and simply observe, they lose all power over you. If someone insults you, ask yourself, why should I take their words personally? Their opinion is just that. An opinion, not a truth. If someone tries to provoke you, see them as a storm passing through. Do not stand in the rain. Step aside and let it pass. If you feel anger rising, pause. Take a deep breath. Do not react. Respond with wisdom. Toxic people want to disrupt your inner peace. Do not let them. When you cultivate mindfulness and self-awareness, they become powerless against you. The power of humor. Transform negativity without conflict. The Buddha taught that conflict only exists when we choose to engage in it. A toxic person thrives on tension, on arguments, on reactions. But what happens when you simply refuse to fight? One of the most effective ways to handle toxic individuals is through humor. But here's the key. Humor must be light, mindful, and rooted in wisdom, not sarcasm, not aggression. If your words carry sharpness, they will escalate the situation rather than diffuse it. For example, if someone constantly interrupts you in a meeting, instead of getting frustrated, you can smile and say, "Wow, I didn't realize we were playing a tag team conversation today. Your turn's over, it's my turn now." It's direct but playful. It sets a boundary without hostility. Similarly, when someone tries to guilt trip you, saying, "Oh, I guess you're too busy to care about me these days," instead of reacting defensively, you can respond, "You're on to me. I've been secretly auditioning for the role of terrible friend, and I think I'm nailing it." It disarms their manipulation without absorbing their negativity. Using humor doesn't mean dismissing their toxicity. It means refusing to let them pull you into suffering. Humor is a form of non-attachment. It's a way to acknowledge their actions while protecting your peace. When you learn to laugh instead of react, you prove that their words hold no power over you. Lesson number 5. Know when to walk away. One of the hardest yet most liberating decisions in life is learning when to walk away. This doesn't just mean leaving a toxic situation. It means choosing your peace over their chaos. Again and again, toxic people are masters of guilt. They will beg, manipulate, and say things like, "I promise I'll change," or "If you leave, you're abandoning me." And sometimes you may wonder, am I being selfish? Am I the bad person for walking away? But here is a deeper truth. Staying in suffering is not noble. It is self-destruction. I once had a friend who was the center of attention in public. Charming, charismatic. But in private, everything was about them. Every conversation revolved around their struggles and their problems. If I ever shared my pain, they dismissed it or turned it into a competition. "Oh, you had a bad day. Let me tell you about mine." First I excused it. They're going through a lot. They don't mean it. But as time passed, I realized I was pouring all my energy into this friendship and receiving nothing in return. The breaking point came during a personal crisis. I reached out needing support. Their response, "Wow, that sounds rough. But I'm dealing with my own stuff right now." That was the moment I understood. They weren't toxic because they were cruel. They were toxic because they simply didn't care. So I walked away. Not in anger, but in self-respect. And for the first time in years I felt free. But walking away doesn't always mean cutting someone off entirely. Can be reducing contact. Stop responding immediately. Let their presence fade. Setting boundaries. Say, "I'm not available to discuss this," or "I don't think I can help you with that anymore." Emotionally detaching. Even if they remain in your life, stop allowing their actions to affect your inner peace. Here's the hardest part. Sometimes walking away means leaving people society expects you to stay connected to, like family. But the Buddha taught that true connection is not based on blood. It is based on dharma, on virtue. A relationship that drains you, manipulates you, or belittles you is not sacred. It is a lesson. Walking away is not cruelty. It is not failure. It is choosing yourself. And when you finally walk away, you'll realize something profound. You weren't just leaving them behind. You were stepping into a new version of yourself. Lesson number 6. Surround yourself with uplifting people. A life filled with toxic relationships is like trying to swim with weights tied to your ankles. You will always struggle to stay afloat. The Buddha emphasized the power of right association, surrounding yourself with those who uplift your spirit, not those who drain it. Your environment shapes you. If you are constantly surrounded by toxic individuals, their negativity seeps into your energy, your thoughts, and your world. But when you build your circle with people who genuinely uplift you, everything shifts. Ask yourself, who makes you feel lighter after spending time with them? Who listens without judgment? Who celebrates your successes without jealousy? Who challenges you with kindness rather than criticism? Years ago, I was surrounded by the wrong people. Subtle insults disguised as jokes, manipulative encouragement, and relationships built on competition instead of care. Then one day I met a colleague who spoke differently. "You're really good at this. Why don't you take the lead?" You handled that situation so well. Their encouragement was so pure that it shocked me. Over time, I realized I had been surrounded by people who subtly undermined me for so long that I had forgotten what real support felt like. Spending time with them changed me. Their positivity reminded me of my own worth, inspired me to aim higher, and helped me redefine the relationships I allowed into my life. Here's how to cultivate uplifting relationships. Seek your tribe. Look for those who uplift, inspire, and energize you. Invest in depth, not quantity. A few strong, positive relationships are worth more than 100 shallow ones. Reciprocate positivity. Be the kind of uplifting presence you want in your life. And here's the controversial truth. This may mean cutting ties with people who do not serve your highest good. Loyalty is a beautiful trait, but not at the cost of your inner peace. The Buddha taught that our relationships should lead us toward wisdom, not suffering. And when you surround yourself with people who see your light, they help you shine even brighter. Lesson number 7. Refuse to engage in their games. Toxic people thrive on conflict. They are like puppeteers, pulling emotional strings to manipulate, provoke, and control. They want your reaction. But here's the truth. The only way to win is to stop playing. A toxic person will test you. They will say things to push your buttons. They will create situations where you feel like you must respond. But the moment you take the bait, you are playing by their rules. The Buddha taught, you will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger. I once had a family member who loved to stir up arguments. At gatherings, they would throw out passive-aggressive comments like, "Must be nice to have so much free time." Some of us actually work hard. First, I would defend myself. I would engage. But that was their game. So one day, instead of reacting, I simply smiled and said, "That's an interesting thought." And I walked away. No argument, no tension, no emotional reaction. And just like that, their power was gone. Mastering the art of detachment. How to disarm toxic people. The Buddha taught that suffering comes not from what others do to us, but from how we choose to react. Toxic people feed on reactions. Your anger, your frustration, your need to prove them wrong. But what happens when you take that power away? One day I decided to stop playing their game. When they made another snide remark, instead of defending myself, I simply smiled and said, "You're entitled to your opinion." Then I changed the subject. They tried again, but I remained calm, disengaged. You could see the frustration in their face. They weren't getting what they craved, drama. Refusing to engage isn't a weakness. It's wisdom. How to master the art of non-reaction. Recognize the bait. Every toxic person has a pattern. Pay attention. What triggers you? How do they provoke you? Once you see their tactics, you can prepare to respond differently. They come. Toxic individuals thrive on emotional responses. When you keep your composure, you rob them of their power. Respond minimally or not at all. Sometimes silence is the best answer. Other times, neutral phrases like "that's interesting" or "I see" can shut them down. Set firm boundaries. Make it clear that you won't engage in negativity. Say, "I'm not going to argue about this," or "let's talk when you're ready for a productive conversation." The deeper truth. Choosing peace over conflict. Some will accuse you of being cold, dismissive, or even cowardly. But that's just another attempt to pull you back into their drama. Their opinion does not define you. The deeper lesson here is control, yours. By refusing to engage, you remind yourself that you do not owe anyone your energy. especially not someone who thrives on negativity. When you walk away from unnecessary battles, you're not losing, you're winning. Because instead of wasting your time in toxic arguments, you are preserving your peace. And in the end, that's the only battle worth winning. Stay focused on your purpose. The greatest distraction detox. A toxic person's greatest trick is pulling you away from your purpose. They thrive on distraction, on making their problems your problems. It's almost like their mission is to keep you stuck in their chaos. But here's the truth. When you are deeply rooted in your purpose, their noise fades into the background. The power of focus. How to protect your energy. Toxic people will criticize your ambitions, downplay your achievements, or demand your attention at the worst moments. Why? Because a focused person is a threat. When you are thriving, you no longer have time for their games. I once worked with someone who was the textbook definition of toxic. They gossiped, created drama, and thrived on negativity. At first, I got caught up in it. I wasted hours defending myself against their petty attacks. Then I realized something. Every minute I spent on their nonsense was a minute I wasn't spending on my goals. So I made a decision. I stopped engaging. When they started drama, I stayed silent. I set boundaries. I'm really busy right now, I can't get into this. I poured my energy into my own growth. And the result? The more I focused on what mattered, the less power they had over me. How to stay focused. Even when surrounded by negativity, clarify your goals. Write down what you're working toward and remind yourself daily. When your purpose is clear, distractions become insignificant. Create a mental shield. Treat toxic people like background noise. Acknowledge them if necessary, but don't absorb their energy. Say a no unapologetically. If their demands don't align with your goals, decline. Your time is valuable. Spend it wisely. Surround yourself with motivators. Read books, listen to mentors, and cultivate friendships that reinforce your purpose. The hard truth. Why protecting your focus is essential. Some will call you selfish for prioritizing yourself, even close friends or family. But here's what the Buddha taught. You yourself, as much as anybody in the universe, deserve your love and affection. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And you cannot fulfill your purpose if you are constantly distracted by someone else's drama. Focus is not selfish. It is self-respect. When you stay anchored in your vision, their negativity can't shake you. And soon, you'll build a life so fulfilling that their toxicity becomes irrelevant. That's the real victory. Avoid gossiping about toxic people. Don't become what you despise. It's tempting to vent, to talk about how toxic someone is, to gather allies against them. But here's the harsh truth. Gossip keeps their toxicity alive in your life. And worse, it turns you into the very thing you're trying to escape. Why gossiping keeps you trapped? Toxic people feed on attention, even negative attention. Gossip only fuels their drama, making you an unintentional player in their game. I learned this the hard way. At one point, I had a coworker who was infamously toxic. A few of us would vent about them during lunch, sharing stories of their latest antics. First, it felt like camaraderie, but over time I noticed something. Every conversation about them left me feeling drained. Instead of focusing on solutions, we were feeding their presence in our lives. And then the worst happened. They found out about the gossip. And suddenly they were the victim. That was my wake-up call. From that day forward, I made a decision. I would stop engaging in gossip and instead focus on my own integrity. How to avoid gossip while staying sane. Vent productively. If you need to release frustration, talk to someone who won't fuel the fire, like a mentor, therapist, or journal. Stick to facts, not insults. If you must discuss an issue, keep it solution-focused. Redirect the conversation. When others gossip, steer the discussion toward growth. Say, let's focus on how we can handle this situation better. Practice compassion. Toxic people act from their own pain. You don't have to excuse them, but understanding their suffering can help you rise above. The true power of rising above gossip. Some may say avoiding gossip makes you passive or too nice. But refusing to gossip isn't about being nice. It's about being free. Gossip chains you to the very toxicity you're trying to escape. Letting it go sets you free. The path to true liberation. You cannot control toxic people, but you can control your response to them. Set boundaries. Refuse to engage. Stay anchored in your purpose. Rise above the negativity, because at the end of the day, your energy is precious. And the moment you stop allowing toxic people to distract you, you step into your highest self. And that's a life worth living.